I'm back. I know it's been a while since I read Stuart Little to y'all, but I'm back today to read 2 more chapters. Since it's been so long, I decided to see if we could read 2 chapters. I hope you are all doing amazing and staying safe. I hope you had a wonderful spring break. I can't wait to see you guys on Google Meet this afternoon, and to hear what you have to say about your spring break and what you did. I hope you enjoy these chapters. So we are on chapter 3 of spring break, and I'm gonna see if I can read chapter 3 and 4. I'm really excited about these chapters. So last time we learned about a little bit about Stuart Little. If you haven't listened to chapter 1 and chapter 2, you can go back on and scroll through on the Class Dojo website and look at the videos, or if you're on YouTube, you can look at them on YouTube. There's a playlist for it. So last time we learned a little bit about Stuart Little, about he's a little mouse, and he has a brother and parents who love him very much and want to protect him and keep him safe. And he also loves being very helpful for his family. So today we are reading chapter 3, which is titled Washing Up. And we have a nice little picture of Stuart and his brother stretching. So let's get started. Stuart was an early riser. He was almost always the first person up in the morning. He liked the feeling of being the first one stirring. He enjoyed the quiet rooms with the books standing still on the shelves, the pale light coming in through the windows, and the fresh smell of day. In wintertime, it would be quite dark when he climbed from his bed made out of a cigarette box, and he sometimes shivered with cold as he stood in his nightgown doing his exercises. Stuart touched his toes 10 times every morning to keep himself in good condition. He had seen his brother George do it, and George had explained that it kept the stomach muscles firm and was a fine abdominal thing to do. Abdominal muscles are stomach muscles right here. After exercising, Stuart would slip on his handsome wool wrapper, tie the cord tightly around his waist, and start for the bathroom, creeping silently through the long, dark hall, past his mother and father's room, past the hall closet where the carpet sweeper was kept, past George's room, and along by the head of the stairs till he got to the bathroom. Of course, the bathroom would be dark too, but Stuart's father had thoughtfully tied a long string to the pull chain of the light. The string reached clear to the floor. By grasping it as high up as he could and throwing his whole weight on it, Stuart was able to turn on the light. Swinging on the string this way, with his long bathrobe trailing around his ankles, he looked like a little old friar pulling on the bell rope in an abbey. Look at him. Doesn't he look silly? To get to the wash basin, Stuart had to climb a tiny rope ladder which his father had fixed for him. George had promised to build Stuart a small, special wash basin, only 1 inch high and with a little rubber tube through which water would flow, but George was always saying that he was going to build something and then forgetting about it. Stuart just went ahead and climbed the rope ladder to the family wash basin every morning to wash his face and hands and brush his teeth. Mrs. Little had provided him with a doll-sized toothbrush, a doll-sized cake of soap, a doll-sized washcloth, and a doll's comb, which he used for combing his whiskers. He carried these things in his bathrobe pocket, and when he reached the top of the ladder, he took them out, laid them neatly in a row, and set about the task of turning the water on. For such a small fellow, turning the water on was quite a problem. He had discussed it with his father one day after making several unsuccessful attempts. "I can get up onto the faucet all right," he explained, "but I can't seem to turn it on because I have nothing to brace my feet against." "Yes, I know," his father replied. "That's the whole trouble." George, who always listened to conversations whenever he could, said that in his opinion, they ought to construct a brace for Stuart. And with that, he got up some boards, a saw, a hammer, a screwdriver, and a brad awl, and some nails, and started to make a terrific fuss in the bathroom, building what he said was going to be a brace for Stuart. But he soon became interested in something else and disappeared, leaving the tools lying around all over the bathroom floor. Oh no. George seems to get very easily distracted. Stuart, after examining the mess, turned to his father again. "Maybe I could pound the faucet with something and turn it on that way," he said. So Stuart's father provided him with a very small, light hammer made of wood, and Stuart found that by swinging it 3 times around his head and letting it come down with a crash against the handle of the faucet, he could start a thin stream of water flowing, enough to brush his teeth in anyway, and moisten his washcloth. So every morning after climbing to the basin, he would seize his hammer and pound the faucet, and the other members of the household, dozing in their beds, would hear the bright, sharp plink, plink, plink of Stuart's hammer like a faraway blacksmith, telling them that day had come and that Stuart was trying to brush his teeth. Look at Stuart hammering the knob on the sink so he could wash. So, that was a very short chapter about Stuart and how he gets clean in the morning. I hope you brush your teeth and wash your hands every day. I hope you wash your hands a lot to keep away the germs. So even Stuart, a little mouse, figured out how to keep clean. So now we're going to read chapter 4, which is called Exercise. And this chapter has something very interesting that happens in it. So, ready? One fine morning in the month of May, when Stuart was 3 years old, he arose early as was his custom, washed and dressed himself, took his hat and cane, and went downstairs into the living room to see what everyone was doing. Nobody was around but Snowbell, the white cat belonging to Mrs. Little. Snowbell was another early riser, and this morning he was lying on the rug in the middle of the room, thinking about the days when he was just a kitten. "Good morning," said Stuart. "Hello," replied Snowbell sharply. "You're up early, aren't you?" Stuart looked at his watch. "Yes," he said. "It's only 5 minutes past 6, but I felt good, and I thought I'd come down and get a little exercise." 5 minutes past 6? 6 in the morning? That's crazy. "I should think you'd get all the exercise you want up there in the bathroom, banging around, waking up all the rest of us trying to get that water started so you can brush your teeth. Your teeth aren't really big enough to brush anyways. Want to see a good set? Look at mine." And Stuart opened his mouth and showed 2 rows of gleaming white teeth, sharp as needles. Look at him showing Stuart his teeth. I think he's trying to scare Stuart. "Very nice," said Stuart, "but mine are all right too, even though they're small. As for exercise, I take all I can get. I bet my stomach muscles are firmer than yours." "I bet they're not," said the cat. "I bet they are," said Stuart. "They're like iron bands." "I bet they're not," said the cat. Stuart glanced around the room to see what he could do to prove to Snowbell what good stomach muscles he had. He spied the drawn window shade on the east window with its shade cord and ring, like a trapeze, and it gave him an idea. Climbing to the windowsill, he took off his hat and laid down his cane. "You can't do this," he said to the cat, and he ran and jumped onto the ring, the way acrobats do in the circus, meaning to pull himself up. A surprise thing happened. Stuart had taken such a hard jump that it started the shade with a loud snap. The window shade flew up clear to the top of the window, dragging Stuart along with it and rolling him up inside so that he couldn't budge. "Holy mackerel," said Snowball, who was almost as surprised as Stuart Little. "I guess that will teach him to show off his muscles." "Help! Let me out!" cried Stuart, who was frightened and bruised inside the rolled-up shade, and who could hardly breathe, but his voice was so weak that nobody heard. Snowbell just chuckled. He was not fond of Stuart, and it didn't bother him at all that Stuart was all wrapped up in a window shade, crying and hurt and unable to get out. Instead of running upstairs and telling Mr. and Mrs. Little about the accident, Snowbell did a very curious thing. He glanced around to see if anybody was looking, then he leapt softly to the windowsill, picked up Stuart's hat and cane in his mouth, carried them to the pantry, and laid them down at the entrance of the mouse hole. When Mrs. Little came down later and found them there, she gave a shrill scream which brought everybody on the run. "It's happened!" she cried. "What has?" asked her husband. "Stuart's down the mouse hole!" Uh-oh. So there's Stuart swinging, and then he got snapped up into the window shade. And then Snowbell was no help, and he took Stuart's hat and cane and laid them by the mouse hole to scare everybody. So, that's chapter 3 and chapter 4. I know I left it on a little bit of a surprise ending. We don't know what's going to happen, but you'll have to tune in on Wednesday to hear chapter 5 and see what happens. In the meantime, I cannot wait to see you on WebEx for our Google Meet, not WebEx. Our Google Meet on Wednesday. I want you to draw me a picture and write a sentence, or two sentences for 2nd and 3rd grade. I want you to write 2 sentences predicting what you think is going to happen to Stuart when he's stuck in the window shade. And what his family's going to do. They think he's down the mouse hole, but who knows? If they don't know he's in the window shade, he might get stuck there for a long time. So, I want you to draw me a picture and write me 2 sentences at least. You can write more than that, but I want you to write at least 2 sentences to tell me what do you think is going to happen to Stuart next, and yeah, what's going to happen, and what do you think is going to happen to Snowbell, because that was a very mean thing that he did. So, I hope you enjoyed our chapters of Stuart Little. And I can't wait to see you this afternoon on Google Meet. Stay safe. I'll see you soon.